all the songs were. I broke out in a laugh, actually, when they were singing the song by the Mamas and the Papas. What was that? California Dreamin'. And, you sounded as good as them, actually. I don't know that we'd know a difference on a recording. That was great. It sounded pretty darn good, didn't it? It sure did. That was wonderful. We've been talking for the last few weeks about vibration, energy, talking about the thought that everything is energy, isn't it? Everything is. And we can raise our vibration, our energy, if we practice it enough. It takes practice. It certainly does. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. It takes practice to change those and align with a higher vibration, the one that we call God, or any other name, Spirit, Allah, Source, Creator, so many names for the same concept. Now, I mentioned that I was in Detroit this week, and it was a wonderful experience. Maybe I'll share all of it with you another time. We went to the Museum of African American History, and that is worth a trip to Detroit, if for no other reason than to go there. I said, I'm certainly glad that I've only driven Fords, because you get quite a ways through the museum and you find out that the reason there are so many African Americans in Detroit is because of Henry Ford. And he made friends with an African American when he was out in the forest earlier in his life, and one of his best friends, he made him one of his first employees. And then this was about 1930, when the economy was so bad, and they recruited African Americans across the South and brought them to Detroit. And the great thing was they paid them the same. They made no difference, no discrimination. With so many coming in, though they didn't have enough housing, he even built houses for them, communities, a lot of them still standing. And so I admire him more than I ever did, and I guess I'm glad I drive a Ford. Anyway, and here's a coincidence. The thought of reaching higher, everybody's heard of Wayne Dyer, I imagine, one of the best or well-known spiritual teachers around, that died just a few years ago. He grew up in Detroit, and his father left the family, left the mother and 3 little boys. And she kept them and took care of them as long as she could, but times were hard and she couldn't feed them. And the boys finally had to go into care. And he felt like they were essentially orphans. But the time he does remember with his mother, when she was able to take care of them and care for them, he was 3 years old, and they would ride on the streetcars sometimes. And he remembered from 3 years old how wonderful, how cool it was to look up and see those straps that you could hold on to. And he saw adults that were riding, holding on to those straps, and how much he loved that. He would even make up stories in his youth about riding those streetcars and holding on to those straps. He loved it so much. So after he became a spiritual teacher, and he said that he would imagine, the thought came to him, and it's one of the ways he would pull himself up from a lower thought, if he was thinking anything that was lower than worry, regret, resentment, any kind of thought that was anything but good, he would imagine himself reaching up for that trolley strap and reaching for a higher thought, reaching for a higher vibration, reaching for God. Isn't that cool? I think it's wonderful. I remember that sometimes too. I caught myself where I needed to change the channel or reach up for a higher strap myself, because when we were, well, let me tell you first about a woman that was on a cruise I went on about 2 years ago, the one that left Fort Lauderdale, and we went all the way to Lisbon. It was wonderful. I enjoyed every moment of it. And the reason I went was because I wanted to find, I've always been an early morning person. I wanted to experience going through the time zones and find the one that's really mine. As it turns out, it's around the Azores. Someplace around there, is not all the way to Europe, but that's my time zone. I knew it was beyond the Eastern time zone. But this woman was gathered with me. We were waiting for the same shuttle in Fort Lauderdale that was going to take us out to the cruise ship. And she complained the entire time. The reason she complained was she found out what I had paid for the cruise. I got one of those last-minute deals. I got it like a week or two before, and when you do that, you get a great deal on a great room. And it wasn't on purpose, but I had just decided it was something I wanted to do. I had those Sundays that I was going to take off, and this was perfect. I'd always wanted to do this. And I know Fort Lauderdale extremely well because I spent many, many years there with my elderly aunt before she was transitioning. So it's I know Fort Lauderdale well. I could have walked down to the cruise ship. And so it just felt comfortable to me. I'd been to Lisbon before, and I felt like when I got there, I could make my way around too, and I did. But this woman complained when she found out what I paid for my cruise. She openly asked me. I said I'd just decided to go. And so, she was just grumbling and complaining, and she had seen already online that the prices had been reduced, and so she was extremely unhappy about it. Well, on the plus side, she was able to choose her room. She knew months in advance she was going, and there's a lot to planning. So she had a whole lot going for her. She didn't need to compare what she paid to someone else. There was no need to do that. All she needed to do was get on there and enjoy herself every moment of it. I met up with her again somewhere during that week and a half, and she was still grumbling. So I thought, oh my, she could change that any moment very easily, looking for a higher thought. But I found myself this week, and I hate to admit it, but I did. We were at that museum, and we'd taken up the first 30 minutes listening to a politician that was the mayor, and talk. We had a limited amount of time, and I wanted to see the museum, and we're listening to him. It was hard to be appreciative, so I caught myself like when we were finally turned loose, and maybe the fourth of the way through, and I had this thought, and I'm thinking, boy, I wish I had more time to do this, and I stopped myself right there. I said, just stop it, Judy. You've got the time you have. You're grateful you're here. Now enjoy it. And just decide you're going to see everything you need to see today. And I did, and it was just that easy. It was just that easy. I reached for a higher thought, and I stopped it right there. It's that easy, and it happens to all of us because we're human. But we can do it. What happens is you align yourself with an energy that's higher. And I was even thinking of these remotes that we use and how much trouble we had. This is just another slide showing that we're all energy and we're all vibration. Everything in the universe, we're energy and we're vibration. And I want to align myself with a higher one. I want to align myself with the absolute highest available. Okay? But it's just like this remote I'm holding in my hand, how much trouble we had with it when we had the plug-in back behind the counter, and the remote couldn't talk to the plug-in. So we're sitting here wondering, why in the world isn't it listening to me? Well, it couldn't get the signal from the computer. So Marquis a genius, you know that, right? You know that he's a genius? And Jelena will tell you it's really her behind him that's the genius. And I don't know. I think they both are. But so he takes the computer and sets it up on the counter. All of a sudden, the signal reaches. And it's the same way in our lives. It's that simple. And this is how I explained it to the youth, too. And excuse my slides, okay, because I prepared them for the youth. And so they're pretty simple and youth-oriented, but we tune into the divine frequency, looking for spiritual alignment and clarity. That's what we're looking for. It's all vibration. We're looking for a higher thought, a higher way of living, a higher way of being. And that's what we teach here at Unity. We teach there's one power in the universe. It's all good. We are connected. We are connected with that energy. And if we're aligned all the time with that, rather than our human complainy selves or negative selves, if we're looking for that higher vibration, how do we do that? We look at our thoughts and we change them. We go into prayer and meditation, and it's through prayer and meditation where we are most receptive to that signal from God. And then we walk the talk. And the more we walk it, and the more practice we have, the better we become at it. What does it mean to be tuned in? Well, just what I told you, like with the old radio signals. I remember a friend saying that he had gone into a hotel and was doing his darndest to prepare his notes for the next day, but he couldn't get onto the wireless, and just frustrated, spent 2 hours doing it onto the network, finally realized he was using the wrong code. And it's just that simple. He was trying to connect to the wrong thing. And that's what we do with our human thoughts, our worries, our concerns, our anger, our resentment. That same Wayne Dyer I remember because I know he used to come to Biloxi pretty often. And the reason he came to Biloxi pretty often was because his father was buried at the National Cemetery in Biloxi, and it's where he finally made peace with his life and felt that he could move on. This man that deserted a woman and her 3 children, he carried that in his heart for a long, long time. Wayne did this resentment and bitterness toward his dad. And he said that he came right down here to Biloxi to National Cemetery to his grave, where he finally released all of that burden and let it go. He finally saw his dad as the child of God, just like he was. But for whatever reason, and he didn't know what it was, that he was not able to stand up to his responsibilities. And you know why? Because he had wounds from his past. He had personal wounds. We all do. And the more we can look at them and ask that they be healed, the more we can become more self-aware, aligned with God, and be the best that we can be. So it's just like tuning in on that old-fashioned radio. You had to get to the right station, didn't you? If you wanted to hear what you want to hear. The only station I listen to in my car is NPR, and I don't do it very often. It's all I listen to anymore. I like to hear what they have to offer, and they have the Gestalt Gardener on Friday mornings, and they have all these other wonderful speakers. But then I get into my husband's truck, and what's he listening to? Some really, 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 really loud country music. And he has forgotten that I might be getting in to ride with him, and he turns the engine over, and oh my goodness, I'm just about blasted out of there, but he turns it off in a hurry. So we listen to different channels, and you know what? That's okay. That works for him. That works for him. And most of the time, what works for me is just a slow, steady rhythm and listening to God. And I've spoken to you last week or week before, too, about listening to certain music before you go to bed, or maybe it's a rhythm that will put you into higher realms. Do that if it works for you, whatever works for you. Let me tell you what I did yesterday morning, and then I'm going to finish up here in just a minute. I had eaten enough crummy snacks on my trip. You know how it is, you're flying. They offer you some crackers. Maybe they offer you something else, some cookies. And so you eat it, and you wish later, I wish I hadn't eaten that. You've gone to a long celebration, and all you had was a small sandwich. You're still hungry, and you don't want to, it's when we're really hungry and starving that we'll grab the wrong thing. So yesterday morning, as I left the hotel about 3:30, I grabbed an apple off the front counter, and it was a wonderful apple, and I put it in my bag. So as we leave Detroit, and it's really, really dark, and the others have gotten their crackers or their cookies or whatever it is they're munching on, and the lights are out, I grabbed my apple out of my bag. And it was the most spiritual experience I've ever had with food. I just need to tell you about it. It was still cold and crispy and juicy and wonderful. I'm sitting in there in the dark. I can't even see the apple. And with my eyes closed, I'm eating this apple, and every bite was a spiritual experience. It was wonderful. I urge you to try it sometime. It was best apple I've ever had. But where was I? I was on a different frequency, and it is really, using the metaphor of a higher strap or looking for a higher frequency is perfect. You've flown, you're leveled off, you're up high, and it's just a wonderful experience for practicing alignment with God. And now the experience that we have when we tune into spirit. We hear peace, love, guidance. It's like putting on headphones and hearing your favorite song, clear, joyful, alive. We can hear the voice of God instead of all that clutter out there. There's so many influencers in the world, and what do they want? They want to influence you to their point of view. Be careful to the influencers you listen to, because the next thing you know, they will have influenced you to do something you normally wouldn't. Listen to your own mind, your own heart. Align with God. Be at a place of peace. I've said many times, I'm a faith keeper. I'm a peacekeeper. That's where I come from. And to be able to do that, I can't focus on the world. I have to focus on me. Am I being aligned with God at this moment? What am I aligned with? Am I aligned with some loud voice out there? That's not me. That's not me. It may be for you. It's not for me. Okay? I'm not a protester. If somebody in front of me needs help, though, you better bet I'm going to help them. And you know that. You know that about me. Be careful who you or what channel you're listening to. Be careful what you align yourself with. We can train ourselves to seek a higher perspective, more positive. We can have relief from nagging thoughts and feelings. It takes commitment. I commit right here today that I'm going to be looking for a higher perspective in all things. It takes practice. I'm going to practice that today just like I did Friday when I stopped myself right in the middle of it. Just stop. Stop. Appreciate what you have. Be grateful. Just be quiet. It takes time. It's not going to happen all at one time. It's going to take work. It's going to take practice. But I guarantee you it's worth every single moment that you'll spend doing it. Now, thank you for your time, and I thank you for your high frequency this morning. I'm going to even get you on the right page. How about that? Yeah.